Welcome, everyone, to our Fall Open House Healthcare Heroes Student and Alumni panel. My name is Rachel Draper. I'm an Assistant Director of Admission here at MCPHS, and I'm so excited that you all are here to join us and hear from some of our current students and alumni. I'm going to let them introduce themselves first. I'm going to start with our current students. So for those of you who are current students at MCPHS right now, please tell us your name, your hometown, your program, what year you're in, and any internships or clinical placements you've had so far. I'm going to start with Skylar. I'll let you introduce yourself first.
Hi, everybody. My name is Skylar. I currently live in Haverhill, Massachusetts. I'm a first-year student at MCP. I'm in the pre-med program, and I am currently a CNA at the rehab hospital in my town.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Gina, would you like to introduce yourself next?
Hi, my name is Gina. I'm from Milford, New Hampshire. I am a fourth-year student at MCPHS. I started in the pre-med program with the PA pathway, and I'm now a first-year student in the PA program. I currently work as a licensed nursing assistant in my hometown.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Zarina, would you like to now introduce yourself as well?
Hi, everyone. I'm Zarina. I'm from Maryland, grew up in the DC area. I currently am a third-year optometry student, so this is a grad program, and not working, just dealing with clinic and classes at the moment.
Awesome. Thank you all to our current students for introducing themselves. We also have an alumni here with us as well. So I'm going to have her introduce herself. Madeline, please tell us your name, hometown, the degree you received at MCPHS, and your current job.
Hi, everyone. My name is Madeline. I am originally from Concord, New Hampshire, and I earned my Doctor of Pharmacy degree from MCPHS Boston campus in May of 2019. Right after graduation, I went into a PGY1 pharmacy residency at St. Vincent's Medical Center in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and I am now a multi-specialty clinical pharmacist at Hartford Hospital in Hartford, Connecticut.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So as you can see, we have a wide array of students and alumni who have done several or are doing several different of our academic programs. So I'm going to kick off our panel discussion with really inspiration of healthcare. So I'm going to start with Gina and Skylar, but Gina, I'm going to have you go first. What inspired you to pursue a career in healthcare, and why did you choose MCPHS?
So growing up, I had a cousin who unfortunately was in a bad accident when she was young. And she spent a lot of time at Boston Children's Hospital. And I really just loved the community there and how caring and kind the whole staff was, even to just the extended family, because I was just an extended family member, and they were just so warm and welcoming to me. And I really loved everything about that. And I've always wanted to come to Boston. So MCPHS definitely was one of my top choices because I love the surrounding area. You're surrounded by many medical places. And the whole school everyone is like in the healthcare field, which I love. We all had the same kind of drive. And I love that everyone had like a common interest. I also loved that specifically at MCPHS, the PA program, there was like the direct route. So you went from an internal student into the PA program. So we did 3 years undergrad and then 3 years graduate. I found that very helpful. And MCPHS really helped me figure out like exactly what I needed to do to get into the PA program, and I didn't see that anywhere else.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Skylar, I'm going to ask you the same question.
So what inspired me is pretty much my whole family is in some sort of healthcare business for work, and I decided to join the nursing assisting program in high school, and we started volunteering at nursing homes. And I just found it really rewarding to care for people and have them excited to see me, knowing that I'm coming to care for them. And it's just grown from then. I chose MCPHS because, like Gina said, it's pretty much just a community with people who care for others. And that was really important to me, especially because you can learn from other people in different programs. That was just a big reason or why I wanted to go to MCPHS.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. We're going to switch gears a little bit here and really more talk about how MCPHS prepares students for their careers in healthcare. So I'm going to start with Gina again. How has MCPHS prepared you to succeed in the healthcare field, whether that's through volunteer experience, internships, or rotation?
One of the most helpful things I found at MCPHS is your first year, you're in an intro to major class. So it kind of goes over like everything about your major. I had no idea that for PA, I needed to have patient care hours. So I needed to like have a job that worked with patient care. And I had no idea that I had to do that. And they informed me of everything. They told me all the jobs that you had to do, that you could do and that you couldn't do. Like certain jobs like weren't really considered for it. And so then I registered myself into a licensed nursing assistant program in New Hampshire, and I got myself prepared during the summer. And they also, in the PA program itself, they make you shadow PAs, and they also make you shadow someone else in the healthcare field to make sure you really want to do that. I also found that very helpful, and they help you connect with other PAs if need be. Also, the CPCD at our school really helped me write a resume. And that's how like I got my job as an LNA, and that's how I've gotten many jobs at the school. Also at the school, I'm involved in a lot of leadership opportunities, which I love about MCPHS. It's so tight knit that like if you're a leader, if you're in a leadership role, you know so many more people. I'm currently an RA at our school, and I found that it's like so rewarding and it's so helpful. It's gotten me so many connections within the school and so many opportunities. It's gotten me volunteer opportunities. I've helped clean up part of Boston through RA and through the school. And it's just been a really great experience.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm also going to call on Zarina to kind of share your experiences with your preparation for healthcare through MCPHS.
Yeah, so as I mentioned in my intro, so I'm in the grad program. So how this works, just to kind of give you a background. So to get into the optometry program, you have to have your bachelor degree in anything, as long as you know you have your prereqs done. So now that I'm in the program, we take classes for the first 3 years, and then starting in your second year, you do your clinicals along with the classes. So in terms of, you know, our field moving forward, how it works, it's kind of a cool mix. I think MCP, one of the best things about it, in my opinion, is the technology, the equipment that we do have. So the optometry program is one of the newer programs at the school, which is great because it's always growing. So as we're learning, our professors have truly, like you can see the effort in them trying to make sure that we have experience on all the equipment, all the technology, all the latest procedures, how to do them, how to handle them, you know, because we don't know what job setting we'll go into in the future. So it's been really great to just get that exposure. I think another thing about this school is the location. So optometry is at the Worcester campus. And the beautiful thing about that is that we have the opportunity to work with such a diverse patient population. And we have these partnerships with these community health clinics in the area. So again, you know, we learn a lot in school, and then we take them out to the community health clinics, and we have the exposure there, and then we can refer back to our home clinic. And then again, as you know, we were saying, it's a healthcare community even in Worcester. So we have referrals that we're able to make to UMass, which is down the street, Mass Eye and Ear in Boston, which is essentially down the street again. So it's a really nice, tight-knit, like it's a nice meshwork that MCP has created for us. So we have the ability to provide specialized care, provide advanced care, and have good relationships, to learn how to make these relationships for ourselves in the future, as well as, you know, we become practicing doctors without being students.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. As you can tell, our students are just so involved in their communities, in their careers in healthcare, and we're really excited to see what all comes of you guys, you know, after you graduate and move on. I do want to touch base back with Skylar to kind of talk about more of what's it like to be a healthcare provider day to day. I know, Skylar, you said you are in some type of position now working in healthcare. So what does a day in the life of a frontline healthcare professional look like, and what motivates you to push forward in that role?
It's a day in the life is pretty normal, except there is a lot of disinfecting and gowning up every time you go into a room. And it's hard because, you go in the room, you get all gowned up to care for a patient and you forget something. So you have to ungown and disinfect and go out and get it. And then it's just a lot of work that can sometimes be annoying. But, it's important to keep ourselves as well as patients safe. So it's something we all have to do. It's definitely rewarding because you can care for patients who aren't particularly like seeing what's going on outside. Like for where I work at the rehab, so we have people there for like 6 months, and they've been there since COVID hit, so they have no idea like what's going on out there, and they're just scared. So it's just it's a very tricky job during COVID, but it's definitely rewarding. As for my motivation, I just keep saying to myself, if I don't do it, who will? We had a lot of people like take some leave of work because they were scared of getting COVID. And that's just when I stepped up and was like, honestly, if I don't do it, who's going to?
That's incredible. And I think a lot of MCPHS students would feel the same way about their future in healthcare and their role in protecting the greater population against these diseases that we're seeing today. So I appreciate such young students already feeling that call to action for their careers. Madeline, I'm going to ask you the same question as a pharmacist who's worked in the field for at least a couple of years now. The same question, what's your day-to-day life like, and what's your motivation to push forward in your career?
Honestly, I think what a day-to-day life will look like for a clinical pharmacist is really going to depend on a lot of different factors. I know that my day-to-day life as a clinical pharmacist has really changed since when I was a resident and the pandemic first hit compared to now. So I was on my second ICU rotation when the pandemic first hit us, and my hospital, unfortunately, in particular, being so close to New York City, got hit very hard during the first wave. And at peak, we had over half of our hospital was all COVID patients. It was absolute chaos with the virus being so brand new. No one knew how to best treat these patients. No one knew what treatments were harmful or what were helpful. We had, ICU stations set up all over the place. It absolutely looked like a war zone. And with my hospital being so much smaller during that peak, we obviously don't have as much staff. So like Skylar was saying, how, some people felt very uncomfortable. There were those that were uncomfortable and stayed in Central the entire time. And there were others of us, myself included, and my ICU preceptor and ED preceptor, who I'm also happy to say is an MCP alumni. We really took it upon ourselves to be full force, kind of that same attitude, like Skylar said, if we don't do it, who's going to care for these patients? So at peak, I was monitoring every single COVID patient that we had in our hospital, which was, our census is normally only about 100 at the smaller hospital. And I was monitoring 130 COVID patients every single day. I was calculating all of our usage for all the critical care meds that they were on every single day. We were making new algorithms almost every single day. Like, no one knew what we were doing, and it was changing so rapidly every single day. Compared to now, at my much larger institution, probably like 4 times the size of where I was in residency, we have so many more staff, and they all have like their specialty roles. So we have a sterile products coordinator who handles all those IV things. We have 3 different ID pharmacists. We have specialty buyers. We have all these people who are also hands on deck. And because our COVID patients are much more spread out in the hospital, granted, we are definitely not at peak numbers at all. But my hospital right now, Hartford, has probably 2/3 of what we did at peak. But it doesn't feel like we're at peak because it's so spread out. And we're also almost a year into having COVID. So we know what treatments are effective now. We know, we don't know everything, obviously. I don't think we ever will for a while with COVID, but we have a much better idea of how to care for these patients and how to go about things. So I think now a day in the life is much more calm. You obviously still see a lot of things that I think will stick with us all for forever. But if you missed that first just crazy surge, there's really not many words that can be used to truly describe that.
What do you think is your motivation for pushing forward since you're
hard? The full peak, I definitely felt really bad burnout. But I still have moments of struggling with that, with it still going on and still seeing so many things every day. But I think just knowing that as a clinical pharmacist, I can have a positive impact on patients' lives and, their outcomes, but also like healthcare as a whole, like showing what pharmacists can do and what our role can really be and to practice at the top of our license, is really my motivation to just keep going. And I mean, patient care is always at the front of what we do. So any day that I can make a change or a recommendation that helps someone, especially a COVID patient, that's a good day.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. One of the last questions I want to ask, first to Zarina and then back to Madeline. What has been your proudest moment as a member of the healthcare field to date? Really, have you had any of those aha moments of, that you will carry on for the rest of your career or your life? Zarina, I want to start with you.
So, okay, this is going to sound a little bit cliche, but I don't think that, honestly, I've had one aha moment. I feel like every day is almost its own like aha moment, because you don't know who's going to walk in the door that day in the clinic. You don't know, what these patients are going to need for their care that day. So it's like, we spend hours and years studying the diseases, the treatments, the manifestations. We study all of that. And then somebody comes in that day and they look nothing like any of it. It's like all the pieces don't match. Something's missing. Something's just weird. Something's not responding to the medication it should. It's just like you have just all these different pieces. And I think each day is just filled with these mini little aha moments. It's like, there we go. That's how we can kind of shift this stuff, interpret it, and kind of, personalize the care so that it's working for that patient, because the things that we learn in the textbooks are just literally no longer sometimes what you can go off of. Like, you obviously need the background and you need that knowledge, but each day is a new day. It brings something new. And I think each day when I'm able to figure out like what that slight tweak is that's going to actually give the patient the care they need, that's the aha moment. And I think even in terms of thinking like, what is my proudest moment, especially now as a student, I've been seeing patients for about 1.5 years. Every day is something brand new for me. I'm learning something because my experience is only that, like this small. So my proudest moment, I think at this point is it looks kind of like, 3 a.m. in the morning after a long day at school of having clinic, having classes, and I'm sitting there studying for boards. And then I'm like, tired and I'm pushing through. And then I realize, what, but I'm doing all this because tomorrow I get up again at 7 and I get back in the clinic and I see these patients. And it just makes me proud because it's like, we're all here in the healthcare field. We're grinding like this just for that moment that in the morning, patients come in, groggy eyed and sleepy at 7 a.m. and you're up and moving, ready to go, because this is how we have to do it. This is what we need to do. And this is how we can affect that change in the community and give the people the care they need.
Thank you so much. Madeline, same question. Tell us more about your experiences for your proudest and aha moments.
I will probably carry my entire COVID experience with me for the rest of my career and certainly the rest of my life. But there are a few specific moments that really hit me hard and almost always choke me up. So I'm sorry. And unfortunately, some of these memories are just very heartbreaking. And sometimes no matter how hard we try to care for our patients, they don't make it. And I think that COVID has just really heightened that reality for me in healthcare. And it wouldn't feel right to me to talk about the happiest moment of that patient making it and all that without acknowledging and kind of taking a moment for, everyone who didn't make it and we tried our hardest with. And I think that that's just a reality and it's just something that we face. But then you do have those moments. And I would have to say that my happiest and most proud moment was watching our very first COVID positive patient, who was actually younger than I was. They were in their early 20s, walk out of the hospital after over a month on the ventilator. everyone was like so emotionally invested in this patient, obviously because they were so young, and because they were like our first COVID patient who was really, really sick. But they were doing so poorly, and everyone was just like holding out hope for this one person. And I remember so vividly helping with their intubation from the hallway when they first came to us. And, I used to carry around like this arsenal of meds in my pocket, because when I would walk into the ICU, I would see the code card outside of their room, and I'm like, that's not good. So I was like ready to go at all times. Everyone was so just emotionally invested, and, it just, it wasn't going well for so long. And then one day I learned they had a successful extubation, and they stayed off the vent, unlike so many times before. And, then after a couple of weeks in our inpatient rehab, they were strong enough to go home again. And unfortunately, I didn't even get to be there when they did leave, because I was off site that day. But they had like this giant ceremony for him, and they filmed it and they posted it to Facebook later. And when I got home, I literally watched it like 3 times in a row, cried like a baby, and just like had myself a moment. And I like watched it 3 times and just was uncontrollably sobbing, and knowing that I had any part of care and, in that patient's care. And I looked at him every single day, monitored him every single day. That will just mean everything to me for forever. And I think all those moments where you truly did something and that person made it, like that will just stay with you forever. But again, you still have to acknowledge, all the patients that you tried so hard with, and it just wasn't enough. But, God's plan is God's plan. But yeah, I think moments like that, they make you do what you do every single day, because you know that you can help.
That's quite an incredible story. Thank you so much for sharing.
I know it's fun.
But I just think it goes to show just like how all of you care so much about your careers, your profession, but more so than anything, the patients that you serve. And that's really what MCPHS is all about. So I would love to end on more of a positive note. Thank you for sharing that. But I'd love to just ask each of you quickly, while we have a little bit of time left. Some of you, Madeline, you're an alum. The rest of you maybe are upperclassmen. We have an underclassman here, but we're right now talking to and sharing our stories with students who are considering MCPHS as first-time freshmen. So what would your advice be for a student really exploring healthcare for the first time, maybe wanting this as their career, kind of things that you've learned, and what advice would you give them? Gina, would you like to start?
Yeah, I would say definitely get out there and try something. I was so nervous to become a licensed nursing assistant, but I'm so glad that I took the opportunity and I went through the class. Like, you're going to make mistakes, and that's okay, but it's all about learning. Definitely try to shadow. I know it's really hard right now with COVID, but shadowing was like my first step into being like, yeah, actually, this is really cool, and I really want to do this. So definitely try anything you can. If like nursing's not for you, there's also EMT, there's phlebotomist. There's so many healthcare careers out there that like you can just go into right now. And I suggest trying at least one of them.
I definitely agree. Thank you so much for sharing that. Skylar, what advice would you give to an incoming freshman to MCPHS?
I would say if you are struggling to find out what you really want to do, try all of it. MCPHS offers so many programs and internships and just volunteer work where you can get a taste of everything. So it pretty much just try everything that you can. They offer so much to you, just take it.
Awesome. Zarina, what would you say to an incoming freshman?
Just like Skylar and Gina, there's so much out there, and healthcare, we have the big things everybody knows about. There's nursing, pharmacy, EMT, there's all these different things, but there's more. There's like literally hundreds of different, like just different minute changes between the fields that can make all the difference to you and to what you want to do and how you want to live your life. And, the little things that'll make the difference for you in your career. So now as an incoming freshman, you literally have the world in front of you. You have time too. So, take the time, do some research, start with the internet. We have that at our fingertips, even with COVID. So, do some research, find out, what you might be thinking about. And then don't be afraid to call your doctor or email them something and start talking to them and be like, okay, so I'm thinking about this. What have you heard? What do you know? Do you have any advice for me? What else I should look into? Get some, do your research, figure out a couple of things, and then try it out. If you don't like it, go back. You already have a list that you've made of things you want and don't want, and just get to the drawing board and try again. Like, you can really actually make this profession what you need it to be, so that you can also be the best professional you can be in the future.
Thank you so much. Madeline, any parting wisdom for some incoming freshmen?
I will say for the fourth time that MCP has so much to offer. Literally, there's probably like 20, 30 pharmacy clubs that you can join in organizations. So, like the others have said, sign up for things, try things out, don't be afraid to put yourself out there and see if you like something. But I would also warn you to not go with the crowd all the time, or if your friends are joining a club that you've tried and you just don't like it, it's just not your thing. That's okay. It's not your thing. Go find your thing. So I would really encourage you to stay true to yourself and stay true to what makes you the happiest and why you're going into healthcare, no matter what field it is. What do you love most about that field? Because if I didn't like my job every single day, I wouldn't be happy and I wouldn't be doing it to the fullest or the best that I could, because it just wouldn't be my thing. So I think figuring out what you truly love about your field and what motivates you and what role you think you'd be happiest in, stick to that. It's not like you can't try to make yourself better in areas that you're weaker in or try new things. But if you truly do not like something, or you truly do know what you love, go for it. Because, I don't have my best friend with me every single day at work. We each have our own careers that we love, and, we're each happy. So definitely stay true to yourself and figure out your why and, what makes you the happiest in the field.
Thank you so much to everyone. That was our last question. It's such a joy for me to speak with our current students and alumni. So I hope everyone enjoyed this conversation, was able to take something away from it. We hope that you consider MCPHS as a school you maybe want to attend next year. Definitely apply if you haven't done so already. And if, again, you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact the admissions office. We're here to help you. So thank you so much for ever joining us. Have a great rest of your night. Bye.